Welcome back to the 1 o'clock turn from the first US attack. Sense of deja vu for me here. I've been blithering away at the screen and realised it wasn't actually recording, so I'm going to do a quick recap of all the preparation I've done for this turn, and then we can move on. But I can tell you exactly what I rolled and what happened. On the opsheet front, no new opsheets were implemented. The only one that was tried was the Americans to move their units out of Gurmiter to start the hasty defence, but they needed a 65 and they didn't get it. The Germans have drawn up one new opsheet to cover the hasty defence of Vossenack by the Fusilier regiment, or battalion rather, if they get there, so that's covered off. Quite an important development was then I rolled for the weather, and having had lovely clear weather for the last hour, heavy fog has descended, 3 hex visibility, so that's going to make a big difference. The planes are gone, and when we looked at the artillery phase, then there won't be any, no one can see anything right at the moment, which is going to make this fight Cumberside very interesting, because it's going to take a while before anyone can be close enough to actually get a shot at anybody. What I was also doing was having a look at the actual attack opsheets that I'm going to be acting under. This was the very first one I drew up for the US. I made the mistake of drawing lines rather than proper axes, so I've given myself the leeway of excuse me, a couple of hexes either side, which is probably about right for the level of forces. I've just been reading an article by Lee Forrester on opsheets, and he was discussing there the kind of general frontages that companies etc. operated on, and a company advance, this is a couple of companies one after another, would normally be sort of 2 hexes wide with a hex either side, so I think that's about right. But fundamentally they're coming down through the woods on the trail into Cumberside. Interestingly, that puts them on a head-on collision with the Germans, so this is the one. They again, I think I've got, given this is a whole battalion, they've got a slightly wider advance, but that's probably about right. Coming again straight through the middle of Cumberside, but interestingly, given that it's Vossenack that they're really after, they also have the option of advancing down this side of the Carl, cutting across it to get through the woods and get in the attack. I'd love to say that was a cunning plan I drew up from the very start, but I think I just draw the lines thinking I was trying to get to Vossenack, but it's an interesting illustration how you really need to think about your opsheets when you draw them up, and I'll certainly remember that in future. Looking at it again, I've missed a trick to potentially advance through Froscheid, which again would give me a kind of fairly clear axis to get in through this way as well. So I think that would have probably been worth sending a company up there if I'd thought about that. One for another game maybe. So if we look at the ground they're going to meet on, it's not really that easy to get a kind of clear shot. It's going to have to be up close and personal, with the Americans emerging out of the valley, and it's coming down from the hill, but it's fairly sort of slowly shelving along here, so I don't think there's no line of sight I can get until you really get up onto the edge of the woods or the edge of the town, so they're going to be right up close before they can really fire on each other. So that's sort of my summary of where we've got to before we actually start the turn proper. I rolled for initiative, and despite the Americans rolling a 5, the Germans rolled a 6, so it's Germans up first, and that's what I'll come back with next to tell you how that went. Okay, so what did the Germans do? A turn of manoeuvre for them. Up in the top part of the map, the battalion here is starting to position itself for the attack. I had a bit of a debate with myself, but would you do that if you're already on prepared defence? But I suppose you will get your orders and you're preparing for your orders, and all this movement is within their zone that we're told to defend. So I think that makes sense to me. One thing, I've kept them to the woods though, because I don't think you'd suddenly start charging across the open if you'd been told to defend the woods until you got another attack. So they're going to work their way around and start positioning themselves there, and these guys, he's just moved along to be closer, so they're somewhat feeble. All one man and his dog basically that's left of these guys are in position. And further, sorry, let's get this in the right position, and there, down at Cummerside, people have basically been charging up as quickly as they can. I've left these two in move mode because they well, there's no way that anyone's going to get close enough to see them here, just in case the Americans get the initiative next time they're set up. I've taken a risk of having them both in one hex, but if we get going next, I don't want to waste time not being able to keep moving on down this road, but up that point we're going to have to split up. So one of manoeuvre. One thing I didn't notice, I didn't mention when I was looking at victory points, it's a minor victory for the Germans if they get a complete, or no, neither side has complete control of Wassenach, but it's actually a German major victory if they get that and they inflict more than 20 step losses. Well, thanks to E Company's disastrous attack on the woods, the Americans actually have already lost 19 steps. So one more step and the loss of some Wassenach hexes and we're into a German major victory. So things are looking promising for them, but it'll all depend on what happens here and also how quickly they can mobilise their tanks, at least up from Germeter. So that's the end of the German go. We'll now do the Americans. Right, that didn't take too long. I'm still taking most of my time working way down the trail, but so the Americans are forming up for their attack. We've got F Company in the lead, but they're still waiting for machine guns and their other platoon, which has got left behind with the machine guns, to catch up with them. G Company is going to hold Strengemüller at the moment, just to make sure we've got people there. They've all been a bit beaten up, but they're going to have to move up, and I'll parking them here to get F Company in first, and then they'll come up. The mortars have also based themselves there, so that'll give us cover for the first few, and we've still got the big chemical mortars sitting up in Wassenach ready to support us too. So jockeying for position this turn, back with 120 turn shortly. Welcome back to the 120 afternoon turn from the first US attack, and there's been some interesting developments on the opsheet front. A very lucky roll of 66, they needed a 64, has activated the Americans in Germeter. They can now advance and take up a hasty defence of Wassenach. Interesting sort of question, maybe be good to find out from someone, or maybe I have to post a question on this. Should I have put preliminary instructions for them to move up first, given that they're not in Wassenach? But there must have been orders for people to move up and take over a defence or something as the attack had moved on, so I'm not sure if you need to do that or not, but I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt for this time round. All other opsheets continue to accrue turns, so that's about it. No artillery or aircraft again this turn because it's heavy fog and no one can see anything, so we're straight into initiative for the action phase. Americans 4, Germans 5, so Germans up first again. I will quickly update them and then come back and tell you how that goes. Right, just at the end of the German move here, and we're going to see some action, so I thought I'd record that. So it's been pretty quiet. Really close line of sight here. He's at 400, that's at 380, that's at 365. We have a shot, so he's just moved up. You can just see each other. It's only 2 hexes, and he's moving in partly protective. So we've got 3 firepower, but he can bring in the his own mortar, which is up here. Yeah, so that's another 3 is 6, and he can bring all these as well. So 6 plus 12 plus another 12, so 24, 30 firepower. I'd forgotten about those, so this could be quite painful for this guy. He's in protective, but he's moving, so they cancel each other out. You need to use road movement, so that's good. So range stuff doesn't count because we're using the mortars. So we've got 30, straight 30, and he's got a 54. That's 2 steps. Ouch. So 2 steps. These guys' morale is 3, so it's 5. 1 off for the terrain. See what happens to him there. 52. So he's suppressed as well. So not a good end to the Germans' turn. Now, the interesting thing, so let me just quickly remind myself where I got to. So we've got a two-step loss. He'll go back to, he's become suppressed. Right, so that's how that ended. He can't respond because he's too well. You wouldn't be able to see him anyway at the 3. So actually we would if he's fired. That's a good point actually. But will he have a line of sight? I was thinking he couldn't spot him because he'd be hidden, but he's just now fired. So I'm just going to have to go and quickly check that line of sight. I feel it's probably going to be blocked by this, but I'm going to find out and then I'll be back in a second. His line of sight was blocked. He's at 410, which is roughly what I thought, halfway between the two. That's bang on 400, and because that's down at 365, that's just too much of a dip below, so he doesn't get to far back. So that's the end of the German action phase. The final thing they can do is remove the suppressed marker, but that is going to, actually no, all the mortars can fire once per action phase, so on that front it'll only be him firing back, so I'm going to risk it. I'm removing that, generates that 3. He's now in part protective, which is a -2, but there's only 2 hexes range, which gives him a +1, so it's only a -1, 3 with -1, so I need 46 or better to knock him back to his morale check. 62. Whew, almost got another step, but another morale check. 3, 5, -1, 4, so 33. Bang on, a 50% chance of staying good. 56. No. A lot of fuss, back to being suppressed. That is a real pain for next time round. Okay, Americans go. Let's see what they do. Back shortly. What do the Americans get up to? Well, up around Vossenack and Germeter, the armour has kind of started streaming down to, as they're going to do the bulk of the effort. Blocking off the bulk, like the attack off avenues here, spread them out a bit more. Due course, these are a reserve to effect down here. These are moving more cautiously. There's not a lot of them, so I can't really afford those to be in the brunt of things. I think most of the defence is going to have to be done by the tanks. So that's getting in place. As you can see from the file markers there, we had another blast at the lead German platoon and inflicted another step loss, but his morale held out. These guys are moving up with a machine gun to try and cover this side of the woods. Machine gun moved up here, it didn't involve in the fire, so I've got a spotter for next time if there's any further movement. And the rest of the troops, if they weren't involved in the fire, are continuing to come through the woods. So it's going to be an interesting choice for the Germans, but that's the end of the 120 turn, and let's see where the next part of the hour goes. Okay, it's now the 140 turn in the afternoon, and as we're close enough we can use some artillery for now. So let's see who goes first in the artillery phase. Actually, before I do that, quick update on the upsheets, and the update really is that there isn't many updates. No new ones have implemented. The ones set up for the future in terms of other attacks and defences will continue to accrue. So where the main function at the moment is this fight right in front of us here. Let's see who goes first for the artillery. It's the Germans, but because he's suppressed and everyone else is out of sight, there's nothing they can do. No, up here visibility is only 3 hexes anyway, so it's going to be the Americans. And as we're near the end of the game, I think it's probably time to start bringing the kitchen sink onto these guys. Let's have a look. What should we do? We've got 3 batteries available to us. We've still got loads of ammo of both, so I think for certain, using my slightly cobbled together counters, we're going to get a 105mm battery onto that, and we will bring a 105mm battery onto it as well. So I'll quickly let you know how those go. I'll do it live now. We haven't done some artillery for a while. Americans fired 11. There's no modifiers either way, so they basically need 33 or better for a good shoot. So for the 105 we've got 35, yep, that's a good shoot, and for the 155, 62, that's a good shoot as well. This could be very, very painful. So down they come. We have 155 is 18 doubled 36, 105 is 20, is 12 doubled to 24, 24 plus 36 is 50, 60, so that's not quite as high as it goes, but pretty high. So 60, partly protective, suppressed, that's 4, and there's only 2 steps in there, which is another -3, so actually -7 off that. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 takes the actually down to the 11 to 13 column, would you believe? So let's see what happens on that. Oh, this poor unit was doomed from the start. A 65, that's the end of him. Gone. So I'll get rid of all those bits in a minute. So that leaves a 18 plus 12 is 30 onto this guy. 30, he's in -3, but nothing else to help him. So 30 with a -3, becomes 1, 2, 3, 14 to 16. So actually that's better, believe it or not. Oh, you're joking. 65 to 66 is minus 3 steps. Well, good thing I didn't throw that one away. That is horrible. Absolutely horrible. They've completely wiped these guys out. His morale, so, well, he's dead, so that's one from battalion morale as well now. 3 plus 3 is 6, plus 1 is 7, in minus 1, 6. What's going to happen to him? 46, well, it's not a 65, so he's just suppressed because they didn't throw that away. So, very effective artillery. Oh, actually, I was a bit unfair on him, but he would have been suppressed anyway. Fusiliers seems a bit odd, don't seem to be relevant for battalion morale. So my understanding of that is, therefore, they count as a third against someone else's morale, and the nearest unit, let's get rid of that wing for it, who's nearer, actually it's going to be these guys, that's not very helpful. So he counts, I'll put him over there, so I understand he's only 3 of him is needed to count as 1, but there we go there. Very effective artillery from the Americans. So initiative, this could be key. 1 for the Americans, 5 for the Germans. So next up it's the Germans, and I'll come back and let you know how that goes. Right, Germans' turn, again one of manoeuvre. The 2nd Battalion of the 983rd is continuing its manoeuvres to position itself for an attack out of the woods. It's incredibly slow going up and down these hexes. It's an extra 1 for every contour you cross, plus 2 obviously for the basic woods, which usually means they can pretty much only go 1 hex at a time. So it's a right old slog, but they're there. The 1st Battalion is ready if it ever gets a chance. In this side of things, the 2nd and 3rd Company are bypassing Cumbershide. They're going to go around the edge, take that view, and we'll leave the remnants of the 1st Company to see if we can hold things up. Good thing is as he's out of sight, he removed his suppressed marker, so that at least means he's ready for them when they move up, and hopefully can cause some pain. So that's it for the Germans. On to the Americans. An interesting little test. Do you think he can fire at him? I guessed this was just a bit too high. He's at 410. This guy is bang on the contour, so he's 400. It's hard to tell. Could be close, but no, he's 415. He's blocking it out, so no fire as he moves up to there. Which is good for him, but actually a bit of a shame, because I was hoping that he might be able to spot for up far against this guy as he moves up, but he won't be able to do it. You just can't get close enough in this game, not with all these hills and valleys. Right, so anyway, he's flip him over, positioned this time. They just moved up 1, but that took all the movement points. So these guys are going to go for it. Let's see if we can get close enough for next time. I don't think there's any. No, I think this is. We're just going to have to pile on in, and see how we do. So, well, put into movement mode. Moving as a stack. 1, 2, and he can bring down some upfire. So let's do that. 6, and we've got these two 18 partly protective, and let's see what that happens with the movement mode, cancels it out. So 18, no range effect because of the mortars. He had to use road movement actually because he is coming up the hill, so that's not so clever. So that is 18 with a +2. Should have thought of that. 16 though, just a morale check. These guys got 3, part protective 1, should be fine. 54, no he isn't, he's suppressed. So flip them over, and I will, it's probably the most exciting thing that's going to happen in this turn. So I'll just finish everything else off and come back with the final report. Nothing much more of excitement anyway occurred in the US turn. The troops here are continuing to move down this flank, and the G Company have put out a couple of platoons to protect in case these try and make a move through the woods for Strengamula. So that's the case. We've rearranged the defences just to make sure we've got a bit more of a curve there, brought up the platoons to just support the tanks in probably the area that they're most likely to get into. Mortars are still positioning themselves, but it'll be, to be honest, a while before the Germans are in a position to attack on that front. I'm a bit worried about down here, but I think I'm going to have to rely on the ability of the tanks to charge down and react if anybody comes through, and you know, it's going to be several turns. It's going to be really last minute if the Germans can hack their way through through the undergrowth and actually get there in time. So let's see what they can do. That's the end of this turn. We'll be back now for the 2 o'clock turn shortly.